Hello and welcome to the session on data-driven enterprise. Jim Barksdale, former CEO of Netscape, famously said, if we have data, let's look at data. If all we have are opinions, well, let's just go with mine. My name is Ishit Vachrajani. I'm an enterprise strategist with AWS. I'm part of a team of former customer CXOs who have led major transformation of our businesses using AWS Cloud. We now work with executives from some of the world's largest companies and help them with strategies to transform their business. In our conversation with leaders, the topic of unleashing the value of data and becoming a data-driven enterprise comes up very often. Now, data is often described as an asset. But then companies have many different assets. We have IP, plant, equipment, machinery, capital, people. Data is unlike a lot of these assets. Data is unique. We all have heard the comparison of data with oil. And now I know that that comparison is mainly to signify how valuable data is. But data is different than oil and any such assets. For other type of assets, you have fixed supply. Data, on the other hand, is limitless. In fact, with more of world's population coming online, with more and more devices getting connected, with smart factories, home automation, we are producing more and more data. For other type of assets, they are not also evenly available to everyone. Data, on the other hand, is created just in the normal course of running your business. That means everyone can choose to put that data to use. For other type of assets, let's say if we were transacting or trading using those assets, I'll have to give up the control of that asset in exchange of some value and transfer it over to you. Data, on the other hand, can be shared in exchange of value. It's like you can have your cake and eat it too. But the most fundamental way that data is different is that the more data that you use, the more you have. It's an asset that replenishes itself. In fact, it gets created in the process of using it. Now, enterprises have always used data. In the past, it was mainly senior executives looking at financial and operational performance and looking back at what had already happened. That changed with interactive queries and data warehouses, where enterprises got an ability to see what was going on, not just look at what had already happened. And we created some new roles called power users. These were folks who understood the business really well of sales, marketing, finance, and other functions, but they also understood how to put that data to use for their function. The data was still in silo. It was still hard to correlate sales with marketing, with operation, with finance, and all other data sets that company had. The reason we are talking about becoming data-driven now is because with cloud, the time and cost to store, process, analyze, and then make it available to everyone, all of the company data has come down quite a lot. And that means companies don't have to trade off on what data to keep and what data to discard. But instead, they can put all of their data to use. And data, unlike in the past, is no longer used to see what had already happened or what is happening now, but using AI and machine learning, guide and predict future course of action. The question that is fortunately not asked very often, but it's still a good reminder of why becoming data-driven is a good thing. So data obviously helps us make better decisions. But data helps us make better decisions faster. And speed matters in business. It is impossible to predict unprecedented events. But data allows us to detect early trends and then respond to unexpected events in an agile fashion by looking at what actions we take and how things are changing based on those actions. Data allows us to deeply understand our customers and then use that understanding to create amazing customer experiences and build new products. These new products uncover new revenue opportunities for the company. Data also helps us improve efficiency By supply chain optimization, inventory, automation, data allows us to take out the waste and improve the efficiency and drive bottom line up. Example of one company that is putting data to use to create amazing customer experience is Formula One. And before I tell you how Formula One puts data to use, let me play a short video clip. Well, if you were keeping count, that was a little over 1.5 second pit stop. That's fascinating. How does Formula One do that? Well, data is the fuel for Formula One. They have sensors all around the car, which are collecting and feeding real time data. They have sensors around the tracks as well. And they collect over 1 million data points every second in real time for these sensors during a typical race. Now, this data is available to the teams, the drivers, to make decisions and improve the race performance. But what Formula One has also done is that they have collected over 69 years of historical data of past races. And then they've stored that on Amazon S3. And they combine the real time data coming during the races with this historical data, feed that into machine learning model to create prediction around overtake probability or pit strategy, and then show those prediction in real time to fans, bringing them much more closer to the action. So if two drivers are battling it out, and as they are approaching the turn, a fan can real time see the probability of overtake changing. Once again, let's see this in action through a video clip. Well, regardless of who you were rooting for there, it's just amazing to be able to see as they approach the turn and take different action that overtake probability changing in real time. That's an example of using data and machine learning to create amazing customer experiences for the fans and bringing them closer to action. So a data-driven enterprise obviously knows how to clean, curate, and collect a variety of meaningful data. But it doesn't stop there. It then builds capabilities that allow this data to be converted into actionable insights. And then it has a culture which allows these actionable insights to be actioned upon. Because eventually it's those actions that drive the business outcomes. Because data without action is pretty useless. So that brings us to the question of how do we become a data-driven enterprise? Now, few things that we all have heard, and they are listed here. Now, this is slightly tongue-in-cheek. Some of these are actually good ideas. They may help you become data-driven. But what is important is not to treat this as a series of checklist items or motions to go through. Because there is really no magic wand to becoming a data-driven enterprise. It starts with creating a data-driven culture. And the culture is beyond the published values and mission statements. It's the unstated behaviors and norms on how decisions are made within the company, how information and data is shared across different functions, departments, and people. This culture then has to be supported by a set of capabilities. Capabilities across organization structure, governance, tools and technology that you use, changes that you make in your business process. Now, many companies get the culture and capability right, but they get it right for a line of business or for a product or for a team. The challenge that enterprises are facing is how to create the culture and capability at scale. So in next 15 minutes or so, we're going to talk about some ways that companies have successfully created and scaled a data-driven culture and also build data-driven capabilities in support of that. Let's start with culture, because majority of the executives say that culture is the biggest impediment to becoming a data-driven enterprise. Now, the way I like to think about data-driven culture is in terms of four pillars. It starts with engaging in data-driven decision making. And that engagement has to start at the top. Executive sponsorship, when it comes to creating data-driven culture, is necessary, but it's not sufficient. Executives have to make visible changes to how they make decisions, how they share information, and the level of transparency that they provide to the rest of the company. And then leaders have to define and create mechanisms that allow them to scale this engagement throughout their enterprise, beyond their own line of sight. Let me share a couple of examples from Amazon. Now, you may have heard that at Amazon, if we have a new idea, we want to create a new product, we write 6-page narrative documents called PRFAQ documents. What is important though is how we write them. When we write them, we avoid using any of these words. We don't say we want to make customer experience better or we want to ship product faster. We call them weasel words because they don't mean much. Instead, we use data and objective facts to really say what it is. Now, this may look like a subtle change, but it is one mechanism that allows data-driven decision making to scale across all of Amazon. A second tool that we use is a mental model called one-way door versus two-way door decision making. Very simply, a one-way door decision is not an easily reversible decision. So for those kind of decisions, you may want to wait till you have 95% of the data, and then you do a lot of analysis before you decide to walk through that door. Majority of the decisions in business, though, are not one-way door. They are two-way door decision. That means you can decide to walk through that door with maybe 60-70% of the information, and then learn and pivot based on what data tells you. This simple mental model, again, allows us to put data in context. Once you have the engagement in data-driven decision making, the second step is to enable frontline action. It is not about democratizing access to data. It's important, don't get me wrong. It is important to democratize access to data. But it's actually going beyond that and democratizing actions and decisions using that data. Instead of moving data up to where the decisions are, decentralizing the decisions down to the front line that is closest to the customer and the data. One example of a company successfully enabling this frontline action is Epic Games and their massively popular game Fortnite. It's played by over 250 million gamers around the world. Now, Fortnite is a free-to-play game. That means that driving and keeping engagement is very critical. What they do is they collect petabytes of data on the weapons that are being used, the strategy that gamers are following, or the playtime, and a number of other things. They've built a data platform on AWS where they process all this data and derive insights from that. But then they go a step closer, where they make this data available real time to frontline employees and allow them to take action based on this data, where they can introduce new weapons or change the layout or introduce new maps during the game time, based on what their customers are doing to improve the experience. That's a wonderful example of not just collecting massive amount of data, but then also putting that data to use and enabling frontline to take action based on that data. Once you have that, the second part to enable that is education. Treating data proficiency as a core skill for the whole enterprise, not just the roles that are specialized in data science or analytics, but everyone. And there are fun ways that companies are doing this. They take cross functional teams, not just folks with experience in data analytics and data science, but all of the business products and other functions. And then they use publicly available data sets to host data hackathons. For example, parking tickets or traffic violations or restaurant bookings. And then give them fun little problems to solve. Like, find me a place in New York City to have a dinner on Friday night with the least chance to get a parking ticket. That makes data accessible and fun, and the skills that people learn will be brought back to business to apply and solve business problems. It's also important to develop common vocabulary for core data entities that define your business, and not having a gigantic list of different MDM and reference data fields, but really identifying what are the core entities that define your business and then getting an agreement of common definition around that. It's not just about buying yet another master data tool, but rather building common awareness and then investing in continuous education of that. The fourth pillar, and perhaps the most important one, is eliminating blockers. We often hear about data being in silos in different systems and different data warehouses and hard to access. But it's actually the cultural and departmental silos that guard these data silos that are even harder to break. A data driven culture moves away from treating data as a departmental property to treating data as an organizational asset. When you're starting the journey of creating and building a data driven culture, and you're creating data infused products, implementing data in the workflows, it is also important to eliminate the option of going back. Because otherwise, the natural inertia will pull the organization back to the things that the way they have always done. And so it's important to eliminate the option to go back to the old way of doing things. The example that I want to share of a company successfully eliminating silos is the global media and entertainment company A&E Networks. Now, I was fortunate to be the global CTO for A&E before I joined AWS. A&E is in the business of storytelling with iconic brands like History Channel. And so the content is at the center. But how we all consume content is changing. We are no longer sitting in front of TV at a specific time to watch our favorite shows. And that means who the customer is. How are they monetizing the content? How are they distributing the content? What do they have in the basket that they can actually sell around the world? These were the questions that were difficult to get answer to because data was sitting in numerous different silos. And these silos were not just data or system silos, they were also departmental and functional silos. To overcome that, A&E made a top-down commitment to embrace to become a data-driven enterprise. They built a platform on AWS called ShowMe because they are in the show business, where they brought in different data elements, but then also allowed access to this data to cross-functional teams and groups so that they can correlate and solve business problems faster. To build excitement and make data much more approachable and fun, they built Alexa skills and labeled them Tell Me as a play on the word Show Me, so that people can interact and ask questions to Alexa devices and interact with data in fun ways. And the business outcomes were tremendous, from improving content sales to better scheduling decisions to implementing data-driven optimization for price and inventory. So far we have talked about how to create and scale a data-driven culture. Now, a fantastic culture goes hand in hand with the capabilities. So let's talk about how to create and scale data-driven capabilities for the organization. And these capabilities are across the organization structure, governance, as well as how you really go about building this data platform. Let's start with organization. Now, we see companies often creating center of excellences, whether it is analytics COE or a data COE. And it's a good idea to bring cross functional teams together, create a community of practice where they solve common business problems using data and analytics, or evangelize the use of data and analytics across the whole enterprise. It is important to keep in mind, though, that these central functions don't become a bottleneck, where now all the requests are funneled through them. Organizationally, regardless of where data sits or analytics sits, it's important that IT plays a critical role in this journey because IT has an end-to-end view of how information flows between different functions and group, how business workflows actually travel throughout the company, and leverage that position to create and build better data capabilities. In terms of specific organizational models, there are options like a centralized model that is heavily centralized, which are right fit if your data is fairly homogeneous and the line of business don't have the analytic skill that is needed. On the other hand, if you have very different requirements across different lines of businesses and you can build analytic skills in lines of businesses, then it might be better to decentralize that. Or you can have a hybrid model depending on the maturity of central function versus the line of businesses, and you can have a different model across different lines of businesses. One concept that we have seen get traction with our customers in creating this is the modern day data community, where they're pushing down the responsibility on the edge to the publishers who are domain expert. They understand their data very well, where they are responsible for defining governance and standard, cleaning up and curating the data, and then publishing this data for rest of the enterprise to use. And do that in a centralized data marketplace or a data lake, a platform that is built and run centrally with security controls, searchability, as well as ability to ingest and publish data sets. And then the consumer, where folks are closer to the customer issues and they have an ability to search from a wide variety of curated data that is available to them to then build analytics model and solve problems. Now, this is just one of the models, but this is something that we have seen get increasing traction on companies that are trying to become data driven. The second part of the capability is governance. Now, governance sometimes stands in the way of creating a data driven culture and capability. And it does not have to be like that. In fact, it is important to define tenets for the governance designed to enable more access to data, not restrict it. Instead of asking question of why should someone have access to data, flip that and why shouldn't someone have access to the data? And there may be valid reason, privacy, security, compliance, regulation, why someone should not have access to this data. But the underlying tenet is to enable more access to data. Security and privacy are so important that instead of treating them as toll gates that need to be cleared before you go live as a remedial control, invest in having a strong data lineage from the get-go so that you have traceability end-to-end, because regulations around the world will continue to evolve and change. And this will allow you to build security and privacy by design. Following basic good architectural practices like encrypting everything, encrypt data at rest, encrypt data in motion. That brings us to how do you really go about executing and building this data platform? Now, instead of starting data forward, start customer or business backward. Find out a business problem or an opportunity, build a hypothesis around that, collect data and build data lake incrementally based on what that business problem requires, and then continue to scale it out. A strong data strategy also requires a very strong application and integration strategy. Especially as we all know, a lot of transactions in enterprises still happen in the back of the napkin or in some spreadsheet that nobody is aware of but few people. So it's important to have a strong product and application strategy to bring these data silos in the system. And then instead of using one size fit all old guard databases and tools that are so outdated and cannot keep up with today's pace of innovation, use AWS, data lakes, and purpose built databases and find the right tool for the right job and give them to your builder. Data Lake has enabled and made it easier to build this data driven capabilities. Think of Data Lake as a natural body of water. That is how it has been often described, where you don't have to know beforehand how you're going to use the data and predefine the output. You can store data in its natural form. The fact that compute and storage are decoupled allows Data Lake to scale and scale cost effectively to process massive amount of data and do it in a secure and compliant fashion. AWS has the most comprehensive analytics platform, all the way from Amazon S3 as a data lake layer to services like Redshift for data warehouse to Kinesis for real-time analytics and many other services that fit and support all different kinds of use cases. Now, one example that brings a lot of what I've talked about together is from the car rental company Avis. Avis wanted to improve rental experience for their customers, but then also wanted to improve efficiency by better fleet utilization. Now, sometimes these may sound like hard to balance goals. And they had a ton of data. They had data from external sources, cars, internal systems, but very limited insights. So, what Avis decided to do was they started small. They conducted a field pilot at Newark Airport in New Jersey to observe the rental process and then identify what are the attributes that go into this make, model, mileage of the car. And then they use AWS to collect this data and then build an optimization engine, run some experiment, identify more data fields that were missing, and then optimize this optimization engine. And then eventually build the machine learning based optimization model and make it part of the rental application itself, infusing data in the product that you're using, allowing them to achieve both a better rental customer experience, but also improved utilization of their fleet, driving operational efficiency. So far, we have talked about how to create and scale a data driven culture through engagement, enabling frontline action, investing in education, and then eliminating silos. How to build and scale capabilities across organization, governance, as well as building the platform, and incrementally filling that data lake, and incrementally and iteratively building the capabilities. The question is, how do you get started? Because getting started really is half the journey. Well, start by identifying what data driven means to your company. We've talked about some ideas of what it means to different companies and what are some benefits, but put that in your business context. Then assign a single threaded leader, especially when you are starting out on this journey. Someone who is senior, well respected, and influential to drive the change that is required across the company. Create and drive culture change. Commit to driving that change. And then pick an important business area or a use case. Build out a strong hypothesis. Collect some data in the data lake. Run the model, learn from that, and keep iteratively building that process. AWS has created a program called Data Driven Everything, D2E, which allows customer to mobilize and scale and create your own flywheel. By working with thousands of customers around the world, this program can help you get started on your journey. Please ask your AWS team about how you can benefit from this program. With that, I would like to thank you for joining us today. There are a number of other executive resources available as well as ways to stay engaged with the enterprise strategy team here at AWS. Wish you all the best in your journey to become a data driven enterprise. Thank you so much. And please don't forget to fill out the survey. We really appreciate your feedback. Thank you and have a wonderful day.